And joining us live in studio is Zanele Luana, Deputy President of Black First Land First Movement. And we've asked back Mr. Okwonko, a legal expert, to join us as well. And we'll have Mr. Tabang Ledikha, an activist who's on the line. Good evening to you, Zanele, and welcome back, Mr. Okwonko. Why is it that this seeming ghost of the rogue unit is, it can't be put to rest in your view?
Well, like they say, it's a rogue unit. So I think there's a lot of understanding. There is an underhand that was done, and that this unit performed things that actually were not legally binding. Hence, it has come back for them to paint a clearer picture for us to understand actually if this rogue unit was below par in the execution of what they were doing. One, you cannot put surveillances on public officials without their knowledge. What are you trying to achieve? Number two, the person that instituted this, the former finance minister, was he aware of what was going? That's the second thing. So what they're trying to say, we can't always be saying Gupta this, Gupta that. Let's look at these agents that are saying that this is wrong, this is right, by actually looking at their tenure of leadership in the things they did, whether it was harmful to the society or whether it was helpful.
But I mean, we hear a lot of that these are orchestrated campaigns to tarnish my image, etc. But the fact of the matter is, for some reasons, the Hawks is not letting go of this particular issue. Zanele, in your view, and initially having asked for Pravin Gordhan to then submit 27 questions, and back and forth, those cases were subsequently dropped. What do you make of this, the latest developments now involving former Minister Trevor Manuel and his then deputy?
We know that the rogue unit was illegal and was used to spy on politicians. There are 3 independent investigations that have came to the same conclusion. That is the Sikakane Commission, the Scroon, and then there's the independent research that was done by KPMG, right? I think what is important for us is to look at the people who are implicated in this rogue unit and their conduct in society, right? We know Trevor Manuel, as the former finance minister of the country, was a servant of white interests, was a servant of white monopoly capital, still remains a servant of white monopoly capital to this date. People like Pravin Gordhan, who was the commissioner of SARS when this unit was established, we know his track record. And I think it's important to also congratulate the president for taking the right decision and finally firing Pravin Gordhan as the then finance minister because of his conflict of interest.
Just in terms of a declaratory note, in the sense that those may be the views of BLF or views of other people to say these are former finance ministers who are protecting white interests, it may not be you may not be able to substantiate it, although it's glaring. You know, we can make those kind of assumptions, but it's not something that you can really.
No, there's no problem with that. But we should also add another dynamic. For example, why, if we have so much media, I'm talking about mainstream white media, who is anti-corruption in this country, why has mainstream media not invested time to write about the rogue unit? We know people like Pete Rampedi, for example, who was a senior editor in Sunday Times and was put in a situation where he had to resign because he was about to uncover the conduct of this particular rogue unit. We know that the people who were running the rogue unit were linked to white newspapers such as the Mail and Guardian, such as the Africans newspaper, such as the Rapport. We know that any moment when any news are coming up with regards to the rogue unit, it's mainstream media, it's white journalists, it's white opinion makers who, before people like Pravin Gordhan or Trevor Manuel are given the opportunity to answer, white journalists in this country who are in cahoots with white settler monopoly capital will come at their defense. We know that no one wants us to know about the rogue unit because, as we would remember, when Pravin Gordhan was summoned to appear, for example, example, to the Hawks, and he did not appear. And we saw the Chamber of Commerce, for example, in America, that came to his defense. So these people who are implicated in this rogue unit, we must think about their conduct, on how they have dedicated their lives to serve the interests of those who oppress us as black people. That's why this is an important issue that we must uncover. But mainstream media has a deliberate campaign to put it under the carpet, because the people who are implicated are not people who are linked to the president, are not people who want the economy to be handed over back to the hands of black people.
Correct. Let's get a legal opinion here, in the sense that do you think there is a cover-up in your view, and maybe why law enforcement or the Hawks are investigating or not having closed the book on the rogue unit? Mr. Okongwu.
I have a different perspective to that. If you look at the investigating authority of the MPA has gone through a lot through their leadership. Okay? Now, what they're trying to do is, any matter or any case that has merit, they go for it. If you look at what happened primarily before this case came up now, you will see that they have lost a lot of cases they've been trying to prosecute, therefore losing millions. Therefore, the minister gave them a mandate that they should make sure that what they are prosecuting going forward should have the basis, which means it should be highly substantiated. Now, what they have done in the rogue unit was, there are not a clear-cut evidences. Like the commission she mentioned, 3 of them that came to a conclusion. You see, what happens in law is not more about noise. You can make noise. What speaks is the evidence before you. So now they have given a subpoena to the former finance minister, Trevor Manuel, and the deputy Jabu Moleketi. So what it simply means is a writ of summons to compel them to give a version to the questions that are. So based on the outcome of that affidavit, the law will then establish if there was wrongdoing. And if there was a wrongdoing, you understand, then they will be prosecuted based on that. Let's remember, I respect Trevor Manuel. Why? He made sure that this country didn't go into recession during his tenure. Now, Prof. Angolan did also a good job while he was there. So the point is that let's give credit to whom credit is due, but where you fall below, the law should take its course. We saw that in Nkandla. We've seen it in several dimensions. So there are no scapegoats. What the law is saying that if we have enough grounds to prosecute, we will prosecute. And based on the finding, we will know whether you are guilty or you are not.
Yeah, and I mean, another glaring example is the fact that the Hawks had retracted what they termed an investigation, or rather an inquiry, onto the involvement of a former finance minister. The thing is, with the credibility of the Hawks in itself, I mean, there are also noises about the rogue unit was established to discredit SARS, and there was a desire to control the instruments of finance in this country, primarily with the revenue services. It has to be above board, though. What is, in your view, is there potential witch hunt, or do you think there's a cover-up, Zanele?
I think one thing we should be explicit in terms of making a point about, we must be very critical of the law, because the law today in South Africa and throughout history does not serve the interest of black people in this country. It's Roman Dutch law that is being used to cover up white corruption in this country. We say, as the Black First, Land First, people like Pravin Gordhan, who was the commissioner of SARS during the formation of this rogue unit, they must have their day in court. They must have their day in court, because it's a big violation to spy on the activities of public servants. But also, we must not look at them as just individuals, because Trevor Manuel and Pravin Gordhan, they have a track record of serving white interests in this country. We should look into those things. But also, if we have this thing of rogue unit surrounding the people of the likes of Trevor Manuel and Pravin Gordhan, there's not that much outcry from the opposition parties. There's no outcry from Save South Africa. There's no outcry from Corporate South Africa, because these are people in the country now that are calling for regime change agenda. These are people that are calling for people like Cyril Ramaphosa to be the president of this country, so that we can fall back again into the hands of the West, and the resources of this country can continue to be looted without us benefiting from that. We say, as the Black First Land First, there's compelling evidence that this thing happened under the eyes of Pravin Gordhan. It indeed happened under the eyes of Trevor Manuel, and these people must answer. They must have their day in court, and also it would be quite progressive to also push for a judicial inquiry on state capture, because these two individuals, Pravin Gordhan and Trevor Manuel, they don't act alone. They don't act alone as individuals. They serve the London agenda. They serve people like Lord Robin Renwick. They serve people like Johan Rupert in South Africa and the Oppenheimer family. So we should have a judicial inquiry looking into how white monopoly capital has captured the state, and if white monopoly capital was indeed involved in this rogue unit set up, as we had seen that mainstream journalists who are white, who work for white newspapers to push a white pro-white agenda. But I just want to come back in the sense that we're working with people involved.
Correct.
In
we might argue that we've inherited a particular judicial system that doesn't serve the needs of, or even the circumstances in this country, that still benefits oppressors or even colonizers. But the fact of the matter, this is what we have to deal with, and everything has to be done according to that. I just want to come back to one, there've obviously been criticism around the former finance ministers in not being transformative enough. We've even heard this as being the rationale for the reshuffle, to say ultimately the state needs to benefit all South Africans, and primarily those who are disenfranchised. And thirdly, is this, in your view, Mr. Okonkwo, that it could be a catalyst to, as in the rogue unit investigations or the noise around it, a catalyst to a bigger probe or investigation that will then deal with issues of injustice economically and otherwise in this country?
The law is what it is. It's not about, that's democracy. Democracy is more or less the majority have their say, the minority have no say. Now, this rogue unit has been brought to our attention to reach finality. It is a process which is ongoing. And after today, I don't know whether they will grant an extension for Trevor Manuel because he's not in the country, but he's got his attorneys to respond on his behalf. But I will feel that he needs time, okay, to respond to the 27 questions in an affidavit, because that becomes an oath, okay, which if it is not entirely correct, it becomes perjured. So basically what I'm saying here is that I don't want to jump the gun, okay? The law is about what you bring before it is what it gives back to you. But for me, I would say that the worst ruling I've ever come across is the ruling in Oscar Pistorius. I feel that was a very, very, very lenient ruling. Okay. Outside that, there have been very, very good cases. The judiciary has stood up and given land judgment on in favor of the blacks. If we look at what happened in Kandla, it was a good ruling. If you look at even what happened in the debt, that the owner does not inherit the debt, is a lot of things go on. But for the purpose of objectivity and for the purpose of substantive law and procedural laws, let's wait for these to pan out. Then we will find out who is at fault. If they are at fault, the law will take its course.
All right, Zanele, but I mean the timing as well. I mean, why now? Again, this ghost or the phoenix emerges.
Yeah, let me just say it's very informative and interesting for me to listen to my brother here, because, you know, in South Africa, we have the Gupta family, for example, who have been labeled as corrupt, and they have captured the state. They've never been found guilty in any court in South Africa, but they will stay remain with that baggage for the rest of their lives. We have a sitting president in this country elected by the people of South Africa who is said to have broken his oath of office, is corrupt and all those kinds of things. He has not been fully prosecuted in terms of the full extent of the law, but he will always remain as a corrupt individual within the imagination and the minds of our people. Now, we have the rogue unit, which is being investigated. We know that there is evidence that is constantly being swept under the carpet because it implicates Pravin Gordhan and it implicates Trevor Manuel, who are the darlings of media in this country, who are the darlings of white settler monopoly capital in this country, who are the darlings of what it means to be ethical and do your work within your full capacity. I think, Cindy, the rogue unit case helps us to also show to our people, particularly black people, to say that the greatest corruption in this country is the corruption of white people, and these particular two individuals are servants of white people. So corruption must also, Pravin is corrupt. We have seen there's compelling evidence that Pravin is corrupt, and so is Trevor Manuel. Now we are told to stop and let this process pan out and reach its full conclusion. But there are people, including my own movement, for example, that I belong to, that we are thugs, we are corrupt, and all kinds of things. Some people, I'm just saying that people in society who are black, I can name Brian Mulefe, Tutumieni, Ben Gubani of ESCOM, the president of the country, and the Gupta family, for example. They're corrupt.
Yeah.
But no legal processes have been concluded on these particular people.
I think what you're saying is that we tend to focus more on the court of public opinion than what is fair, or whether we're all equal in front of the law. Mr. Okonkwo, your view, and that these kind of investigations or even cloud of suspicion is not meted equally, depending on which side of the fence you are.
Let's look at it critically, okay, and objectively. At the same time, I don't want to be a bit subjective. Is the word fair?
Is the word fair?
Is the world fair? It is not. Let's look at the International Criminal Court of Justice. How come I've never seen an American president, a UK prime minister of this European that has belonged to the veto power nations being prosecuted? I strongly feel that the former president of America should be prosecuted for heinous crime in Iraq. You understand? So, on what grounds do we begin to look at that? The same thing happened when al-Bashir came here. They expect the sitting president to hand al-Bashir over. So then there will be a war between here and when the man has immunity. No, the point we are making here is whoever has contravened any law and is found guilty should serve his term. Okay. Unfortunately, it is not so in certain retrospect. I've seen a case where a sitting judge gives a judgment, then they appealed for a review judgment, a full bench seat, and arrived to a different conclusion. Does that mean justice was not served initially, or it was served later? So what I'm basically saying in this retrospect is, I'm not going to sit and say I have evidence that incriminates or indicts Pravin Gordhan or indicts Trevor Manuel, that he has done this and he has done that. Okay, what they are saying is, we suspect that there's an underhandedness that has taken place. And we want to go and see, so that the nation will see at the end of the conclusion that people that paint themselves so ethical, like she said, so above board, are actually people that present a particular interest. And if this is pans out that way, then it becomes a turnaround that the people we look at so pious are not actually pious. And let's look at the actual situation. Unfortunately, I want to just touch a bit on when we say that the president of ANC is ridiculed and this. I feel that there are certain things you find yourself in terms of compromising that gives ledge to that. The last local government election, this is the first time that Johannesburg or Carlton has lost the mayor to another state. Why? The people are saying, we don't like your leadership. We don't like what you are saying. However, what she's saying is that what is good for the geese should be good for the gander, but is not being met. Then that's fine. It's coming out to that retrospect. I hope and believe that this system will come to a good conclusion. Then we will say, yes, we have something to stand on. Because when people have something to stand on, they will do what? They will blow it out of proportion.
Just very briefly, closing comments, Anil.
We must know that, for example, someone like Trevor Manuel, who knows about the story, for example, of the 26 billion rand that was looted out of the South African Reserve Bank. He was in government that time, the finance minister, when the CIX report was concluded that these banks gained this money through illegal means. And when he was in office, because this was a case that would show that the real corrupt people in South Africa are white and those who own our economy, he put it under the carpet. This is the track record of Trevor Manuel, and I do hope that in this particular instance, he's going to come to his senses and he's going to tell us about the rogue unit and how that institution was used to prey on public servants and individuals in a democratic society.
Zanele, thanks indeed for your views. And Mr. Okonkwo, great having you as well. That's Zanele Luana, Deputy President of Black First and Land First Movement. And we have Mr. Okonkwo, a legal expert, Nwara Okonkwo, joining us in studio as well. Thanks indeed for your time. We took a quick ad break. We're back with the latest news update.